Hi there, welcome back. It's high time we talked about ranching a little bit, isn't it? This is an interesting topic, and I'm pretty sure Clay is still working on it because there are some interesting things that you can do with it, but it feels like it's a little bit of an unfinished product at the moment. At least that's what I get out of it for now. But regardless of that, it does have some intricacies and some pretty useful things that you can do with. And let me explain what ranching is. So first of all, you need to in your research, in order to be able to ranch, you need to be able to you need to actually research this area here, this specific tile, which is about ranching, and this will give you some of the equipment that your answers will require to effectively perform their jobs, right? So once you do that, the other thing that you also need to take care of is make sure that you actually have a rancher. And ranchers actually start with a farm hut as farmers, and eventually go to the rancher tile here, the rancher research, pretty much. And once you have actually put somebody on this specific tile here that I'm highlighting here, the rancher one. It is only then when they can actually be a rancher and start working on your ranch or your stable, as it's called. So once you have that, you have your research and you have your people that can ranch, and sometimes you can have more than one depending on how many hatches or how many critters you would want to have in your ranch and being groomed and all that. But the third thing that you need to do after your research and setting up a person as a rancher or more is to set up your stable, as it's called. And stable is actually a room that you can see here in the rooms overlay. You see here that this is a stable, and as we can see over here, a stable hastens critter domestication. So stable critters will be more productive and less hostile. That's definitely something that you need to do. And if you have a lot of space in your stable, you can also make it larger so that it can actually have many more critters. And what's important about having a large space is that critters also have status information, and if there are too many around them, they don't feel so well. They feel crowded, and that actually affects affects their happiness. And talking about happiness and all that, the first thing that you need to do is actually the most important thing that you need to do about having your critters domesticated is keep them happy, right? And in order to do so, the first thing is to build the room that you need, the stable, which requires a grooming station, a critter feeder, and a critter drop-off. And critter drop-off is where your critters will actually be captured by a rancher. In order to capture a critter that's actually outside of your ranch at the moment, you can click on it and then select wrangle, and this means capture this critter alive. And once you do that, they will actually bring it to the drop-off point, and it will be part of the ranch. That's how it works. Next, depending on the type of critter you're having in your ranch, you need to set up what you want them to eat. And generally speaking, I'm having a hatch ranch here, which I think makes sense. I will explain why. I generally like to feed them clay if we're talking about the specific things here, the hatches, the specific critter. Just because clay is abundant and it's not really required so much for anything else. So it's a good idea. And the good thing about hatches is that once they are kept happy, they produce coal, and coal is a very useful resource. Obviously, it's not as I guess as easy as natural gas, but the thing is sometimes if you haven't planned well, and I will explain. I will have another tutorial about natural gas because that's also very interesting. But coal can be useful even at times to even start the natural gas generators at times. So in this game, the more resources you have, the best you are, in the best position you are. Right? So that makes a lot of sense. Therefore, Hatch Ranch makes a lot of sense, and you will see that Hatches have status symbols here. Tame, which is increases their metabolism, decreases their happiness. Old which means that they're gonna die after a while. Expecting, for instance, which is super important because this means that they're actually going to reproduce. And this specific critter, when it says expecting, it actually means that as you see here, the reproduction condition is when it becomes 100, they will actually lay a new egg here and pretty much start from scratch again, like go back to 0 and then do the same thing. And this one is going to die and give some meat also, which probably the other creatures will eat, but anyway. Another thing is being groomed. So the critter has recently been attended by a rancher. So the rancher is the person actually who is helping the critters stay happy by bringing them things to eat, by grooming them, and the grooming station is used for that. And in case you're wondering what's a shearing station, which you may have seen here, where do I have? It's actually in the stations probably. So the shearing station is actually used for Drekos, and Drekos are also awesome because they can eventually even provide you with plastic. And the way to actually know what gives you what in terms of critters, you can go to the critters tab here and examine all the different critters. Very useful, very interesting is Drekos, which give you phosphorite and even plastic. Some of the I think this one gives you plastic, the glossy Draco, and you can actually see what they actually eat and what they produce just by clicking on them. Actually, even here as an overview. So this one, the critter morph, as you see here, it has a diet of mealwood, the actual plant, and bristle moss blossoms, the plant. They produce phosphorite. So that's super useful to know, because you can have them in a ranch and have them produce your stuff and phosphorite, for example. Now there are other ways around it, which I will also explain, but for now just remember that you can just take a look. Let's say hats here, for instance. Let's take a look at the hats, and you see they obviously come from the hatching eggs, and they eat all these things here, clay being one of them, and they produce coal, which is super interesting. And there are also variants like the stone hats, the sage hats, and in some cases they produce different things. In some cases they eat different things. So, for example, this one, the smooth hat is actually super interesting, because it can effectively even produce tungsten for you, or all these materials here. Granted, it actually eats useful material also, but. There are many of those, and Puft is another useful one because it produces slime by eating polluted oxygen pretty much. And you can see it here, the diet is polluted oxygen, produces slime. And slime is really important, especially if you have mushrooms in your base, because mushrooms use slime for fertilizer. So that's actually another useful element that you can actually get from critters. So it's important to know. I mean, it's useful to at least know what the different critters can give you. So you take a look at those, examine them, and you will notice some interesting things here. And I would say that the most important ones are the Draco, the Hats, the Puft, and the Slickster. So I would urge you to take a closer look at those. So when you have eggs also, they can incubate on their own, or you can help expedite the process by having an incubator, which you can find, I believe it's again in the food area over here. So you can have an incubator to pretty much manually incubate the eggs, artificially, I would say. And so eventually this will give a critter, and this will give out a critter that you can domesticate again, and have another one at your ranch. Just make sure that you're not overpopulating your ranch, because this will drop the happiness effectively. You don't really want to do that. But yeah, and that's a cycle that, as you see here, pretty much gives you. I'm using this for a code generation mechanism, really, and it's not like a super high requirement, but it's a nice thing to have, right? So I wouldn't use a ranch for food, because there are other more effective and easier methods for food, like bristle blossoms, which are the easiest ones, and mushrooms, which require a little bit more attention, but they also provide you with good food. So I wouldn't use them for food, but I would definitely use them for materials. So that's what I recommend using them for. And as a side note, please remember that environment is effectively a ranch, practically speaking. I mean, yes, granted, you can't have the same amount of happiness for the critters, for the most part, because they're like not groomed and all that. But regardless of that, if you are in areas where there is a big population of critters, you can actually get their materials from the floor. So as you see here, I have like 3 doors here, manual airlocks, and just so that my critters don't escape. That was the idea here for the most part. And also I have a manual airlock here with with water. And in case you don't know about that, if you can create this kind of structure here, you make sure that any gas that's on this area, on this side of the of your screen, pretty much doesn't enter this side. So you see, there's no there's no traversal area of gases around these 2 areas, so you cannot mix them, and your dupes can still pass through. And I tend to, and it's actually generally speaking, I tend to do that. I don't think I have done it in this gameplay so far, but it's a good idea to actually have your your exosuits somewhere around. So to make sure that only the duplicants that are wearing exosuits can pass through here, as here, for example, where again I'm having the same airlock. It's exactly next to my exosuit dogs, and that's because they don't get a debuff, the sloppy feet, not sloppy, the soggy feet debuff, which is like a 20% in their stress, and it's meaningful. So why get it? You see here, for instance, right? There's no debuff just because they're wearing the suit. That's it for the most part, and you can do that also with Dracos, which I really like doing, because as you see, a lot of phosphorite, which is amazing, and the occasional plastic if there is a glossy one, a glossy Draco. And also you can do it with Puffs, which I haven't done it yet, but I was thinking to do it in probably this area here, because this will effectively provide me with slime. Now notice that here there's no polluted oxygen. So what you could do, for example, is find like a polluted oxygen geyser and pump some oxygen here, so that you effectively have a ranch, practically speaking. And yeah, I wouldn't recommend it so much to be inside your base, because it's difficult to, at least at the core of your base, at least, because it would be a little bit of a nightmare to handle for not so much gain. So I really wouldn't recommend to have it like let's say in here. I wouldn't recommend to have like a room full of polluted oxygen just to hold puffs in there. It would be a good idea to have it somewhere around here, though. You really don't want to mess with having polluted oxygen in your base. I don't see the point, to tell you the truth. So yeah, that's it. As you see here, they're eating, for instance. See, of course, is it that sleeping? Actually, that's sleeping. But they're cute. So they are effectively getting the polluted oxygen from the environment, sucking it up. I'm surprised it hasn't done it still. It has probably eaten or so, but at some point it pretty much gets the here. You see the animation is very nice, and it will effectively produce slime and drop it on the floor, and you can gather it later. You can see it here, slime, for example. So yeah, just have an area with a lot of polluted oxygen, or pump polluted oxygen, and have them produce for you. That's practically a ranch. That's it. At least that's the beginning of ranching. I mean, I'm interested to see what they come up next, because I think there will be a lot. And I haven't played with fishes so much. There are also some things around fishes, the fish traps and all that. But it's I'm not sure if it's actually worth your time so much at the moment, with all the things that are around you that you have to examine. Maybe if you want to play with it, but I think that's knowing these basic things is what you really need to know about producing materials, really. And again, I wouldn't focus on food so much. I know it's viable, but I don't consider it the best solution. So I don't do it at the moment, at least. If they somehow automated the system, so I don't actually have to incubate things manually and all that, maybe. But for now, I just keep it for pretty much for producing materials. Thanks for watching. I think that's the 8th video of our series. That's starting to become a nice guide. I'm enjoying it a lot, and I have a lot more to come. So please remember to like the video, and please also subscribe, because there's going to be a lot, and I'll see you soon next time. Bye.